Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. We are live from Dortmund because, of course, Newcastle United face Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League on Tuesday. I'm Andy Musgrove, joined by Newcastle United editor Aaron Stokes. Yes, me and Aaron have had the tough job of hopping on a plane this morning and heading out to Germany. Coming up on this show, we'll look back on Newcastle's 1-0 win over Arsenal, Mikel Arteta losing his cool, and, of course, bringing all the build-up to Tuesday's massive European clash. Hit like, share the podcast, and get involved. We're recording in the lobby of our hotel. We did have dreams of a nice little German cafe on the Market Square in Dortmund, but just to secure the Wi-Fi, we're in a hotel which is quite nice. And actually, Aaron, you've somehow managed to secure a hotel literally a stone throw away from the stadium.
Look, it's when you want a job doing, leave it to the professionals, and that's just what happened. Yeah, we're in a good little spot. There's a nice little ambience around the place, and actually the thing that I spotted was, so far I've struggled a little bit with the German language, but there's one word that you always know what it is, no matter what language it is, and that's beer garden. And there's a big sign. Did you see it outside? Beer garden. And I thought, I know what that is.
I didn't, because I'm very professional, and I was just thinking about the great content that we could be producing on this trip, and we'll be producing loads of content, and we have to head over to YouTube and subscribe, and you'll see all the content that we are bringing you. Now, we will talk, of course, about Dortmund later, but safe travel over. How was your journey?
Yeah, good journey today. I think we've just been talking off air about the amount of Newcastle fans that we've seen stranded, flights delayed, flights cancelled, and that was what was running through my head yesterday when it took us 8 hours to get down to Stansted instead of the allotted 4 that I thought it was going to. Travel chaos yesterday on that East Coast due to the trains, but yeah, all good now. And yeah, already, I mean, don't know what it was like when you came in from Birmingham, but Stansted, that flight was just Newcastle fans galore, really.
Yeah, there were loads of Newcastle United fans on my flight. I'd say probably about 90% were Newcastle United fans. I actually bumped into an old pub landlord. I used to frequent his pub when I worked in Burton upon Trent, and he was sitting behind me on the plane. And you recognise faces, don't you, who are travelling? And yeah, most of it was Newcastle United fans. I have to say, though, it's the first time I'm away from my little baby daughter in her whole entire life, and it was a bit difficult getting up this morning. So Eddie, if you're listening, please make the trip worthwhile, because our heartstrings were going this morning. Dortmund then in a second, but now we will talk about Arsenal and that 1-0 win Newcastle United got over the Gunners. I mean, the supposed title challengers, Aaron, but Newcastle thoroughly deserved the win. And if you take away all the controversy of that goal that came with it, Mikel Arteta's reaction, and you just focus on what Newcastle United put into the performance, which was hard work, commitment, and effort, they were good value for that 1-0 win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the wins, definitely been overshadowed, hasn't it, by the controversy that's followed. I think Mikel Arteta has maybe reached into the Jose Mourinho playbook and pulled out a press conference like that where it completely deflects from his side's performance. I mean, one shot on target in the entire game, a goalkeeper that's completely flapped it, quite a routine cross before Anthony Gordon's goal. So I think, yeah, very, very weird to see the reaction, not just from Arsenal fans, but I think just from fans in general over the last couple of days about, the supposed controversy, which I don't think there was. I know we'll talk about it, a bit further about some of the refereeing decisions, but I thought Newcastle were good value for the win. I thought it was an ugly game, a tense game, but I thought Newcastle probably just edged it on the balance of things.
Yeah, I mean, where do we start with VAR? My favourite subject. We have to start with the goal, and I actually think the only element of the goal which was up for discussion was whether Joe Willock kept the ball in play. I don't think it was an offside. I don't think it was a foul. The defender was already crouching down. I don't see what Joe Linton possibly could have done wrong. I think the only question was whether Joe Willock kept it in play. And it's actually a lesson. It's a lesson of playing into the whistle, and Arsenal's players just stopped. Joe Willock didn't, and they've paid the price for that. I mean, the other two, checks were ridiculous. But you don't seem to agree with me. You just didn't think all three elements didn't need to be checked.
No, I'm gonna disagree. I thought the VAR clearly didn't have the angle for the Joe Willock moment, be in sport. I never thought I'd hear this, but I actually wanted to hear more from Richard Keys and Andy Gray, who claimed that be in sport had the technology to prove that the ball stayed in. That's the only technology we've seen. I think the Gordon one, it's impossible to tell. If VAR don't have the camera angle to see when the ball hit Joe Linton, then, you can't give it offside. So I think that's fair. The only one for me that I think is maybe a little bit contentious is the Joe Linton one. I think on another day, with another referee and another VAR official, I think maybe you would see that overturned. Now, I think it would have been soft if it had been overturned, but that one was the only one of the three for me that I thought, okay, maybe this is going to get overturned because of this.
Interesting, because for me, the defenders, he's already going down, and Joe Linton has just jumped for the ball. I mean, it's hit Joe Linton in the face, really, hasn't it? Because of the defenders, kind of already bending down. Look, it took a long time to get the outcome of the goal, and that was my initial thought, like, how long are we waiting here? But actually, in hindsight, you want the right decision. So do we congratulate VAR in many ways that they've come to the right decision? Now, people will say, well, look, the ball was out, they just didn't have the evidence that it was in. Okay, well, but if that is the case, and they've got to give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker. So I think actually, take away the fact it took 6-7 minutes, we have to applaud the fact that they came from Newcastle's point of view to the right decision, because if we'd been sitting here and they'd called the wrong decision or they'd rushed it, we'd be absolutely raging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw some, quite ridiculous claims over the weekend that they should have, overturned they should have disallowed the goal because of the Anthony Gordon offside. There's absolutely no way, if they don't have the clear evidence that he's definitely off, they can't be second guessing. And I thought Jamie Carragher spoke really, really well about it on Sky. And I think, for once, we're talking about VAR getting it right. As I've just said, I think Joe Linton on another day, maybe. But for me, it would have been soft. And yeah, I can't believe, we've heard more about this decision than we heard about Diaz's offside goal for Liverpool. And when you think, Arsenal's statement yesterday, just pure embarrassment. I mean, that was disgraceful what they put out. You would have thought, if you hadn't watched the game Saturday, you would have thought, well, have they had a goal disallowed themselves, which was onside, like Diaz? Have they had a man sent off? Have they had a load of decisions go against them? And yes, maybe one or two did. But I mean, I can't believe what the reaction's been like in the last couple of days.
Yeah, Mikel Arteta used the word embarrassing in his initial press conference after the game, and I think he's the one that has to actually be embarrassed, because he's shown a total lack of respect to Newcastle United and Eddie Howe. He claims that there was only one team trying to win it, and I've seen Arsenal fans complaining that Newcastle played it like a newly promoted side in the backyard. It's like, well, at the end of the day, it worked. Newcastle United got 3 points, but I also think Arteta's claim of Arsenal being the only ones in it is totally ludicrous, because Newcastle United never really looked threatened by Arsenal. Arsenal only had 2 shots on target. Newcastle had the one, and that was the goal. So where was Arsenal's threat? Like, it's utter delusion from Mikel Arteta. And it's one thing being angry about VAR, and you can kind of understand his anger. That I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. But show some respect to what Newcastle United and Eddie Howe are doing here, because they mean business, and that was a statement win. And I actually think there's more to read into Arteta's reaction, into Jorginho's reaction. It's not just about losing. I think the bigger picture is they know Newcastle United aren't even at the peak of their powers yet, and yet Newcastle United are playing like, let's be honest, a few more points and that's a title contenders win. They are playing at the highest level, and they've got so many more miles to go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've just literally wrote a piece about this, about, the sort of spice that's been added to these games recently. We saw it at the Emirates in January. We've seen it, obviously, this time around. We saw a little bit in April or May when they played at St James's Park. But also, I just think, this is an Arsenal team that are trying to topple Manchester City. They're trying to become winners. They're trying to become Premier League champions. That was not a reaction of a team of unwinning mentality. That was such a loser's mentality to put that statement out for Arteta to react the way that he did. I thought it was really, really petulant. And I think, look, it's made the win even more sweeter than it would have been. If Arteta hadn't came out after the game, given that press conference, I don't think we'd be really, reveling it as much. Yes, it was a fantastic win. It wasn't a good performance, by either side, really in front of goal. But now, you've got Newcastle fans thinking, well, you know what, when we play them in February, there's going to be a little bit of needle between these two teams now, I think.
Yeah, I saw someone saying it's like created a new rivalry, and people dragging up a quote from Sir Boy Robson about how Arsenal are bad losers, and you can totally see why people are doing that. And actually, I think the way Arteta has reacted, the way Arsenal have reacted. I mean, to put out that statement before they put out a statement condemning the racial abuse of Bruno and Joe Willock was a baffling decision. More on that later. But I think what it does for Newcastle United fans and Newcastle United and Eddie Howe, it just reaffirms that us against the world mentality. And they go into Dortmund on Tuesday with that. That's on top of the great form they find themselves in. That's on top of Dortmund getting thrashed 4-0. They will play like the world is against them. And that's exactly what you will need when that yellow wall becomes apparent on Tuesday.
Absolutely. And I think, we saw it last time Newcastle United won before they went to the Champions League. And, it really does act as a complete springboard. I mean, the fact that they've taken points, as you say, from a team that are going to be up there, as contenders. Newcastle United, some will argue are maybe there. I don't think they're at that level yet where they're going to challenge Manchester City and Arsenal this season anyway. But it's a huge statement win. And Eddie Howe tried to play this down after the game on Saturday, where he was asked by our colleague Lee Ryder, it wasn't a statement win, and Howe doesn't say like that. But I think for fans, you look at that win and think, okay, this is an Arsenal who were undefeated in the league. They want to be going toe-to-toe with Manchester City, and actually they've came to Newcastle. They've created very little. Defensively, I thought they were okay. I thought Saliba had a very, very good game. Newcastle were never really under the cosh massively, weren't they? Even the last 10, 15 minutes, when you could see Newcastle was sitting deeper and deeper, you never thought there's a goal coming here. So, yeah, it's a huge win. And as you say, what it will do for them going into tomorrow's game is absolutely huge as well.
And it makes Arteta's reaction even more baffling because, as you say, if you read that out of context, you are questioning whether they had thousands of decisions go against them. Did they have a goal disallowed? They created next to nothing, and they're meant to be title contenders, unbeaten this season. Look, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Arsenal will be there or thereabouts in the conversation, but I just find his reaction. I tell you what it is. Actually, it's a lesson out of Jurgen Klopp's book, isn't it? It's the good old distraction tactic, because he knows that Newcastle United players wanted more than his side, and he knows that they've been beaten by a better side on the day. And even if the VAR decision gone Arsenal's way, I still think Newcastle United would have had one or two more chances in that game, and they would have gotten the win because the crowd would have whipped up. I don't think Arsenal handled the crowd very well. They're just feeling sorry for themselves. And look, again, I go back to my original point. Mikel Arteta needs to show some respect to Eddie Howe, because his reaction has been nothing short of childish.
Well, that's it. I think I was a bit shocked, because Arteta came out first in the press conference before Eddie Howe. Isn't too uncommon when a team gets beat, but when he sat down, you could tell straight away from the first question. He was using words like, disgrace, embarrassment. He was saying that he felt sick. And I was thinking, hang on, have we been watching the same game here? No mention at all about Kai Havertz's challenge from Arteta, surprisingly. And he was even pushed by one of the Newcastle United reporters. Okay, if you say it's not a goal, fair enough, but which of the three things is it not a goal for? And he couldn't answer it because, he felt like he was floundering. It felt like a manager who thinks, okay, we've just came to this place, we put in quite a bad performance going forward, and you know what, I'm going to take the spotlight off the team.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was quite condescending, actually, to reporters, having watched back the press conference. Like, he was explaining it like a child. And we all know how offside works. We all know how VAR works. We all know about the ball goes out of play, but, angles and what have you. At the end of the day, his team were not up to beating Newcastle United, a depleted Newcastle United. Now, people will say, well, they're missing Gabriel Jesus, they're missing Odegaard, but, the players that brought in, like Jorginho and Enteke, they're good players. They should have put on a better show. The fact is, Newcastle United defensively put in such a good performance, and I think that is up there with one of the best defensive performances under Eddie Howe. And a man who deserves praise, and he's getting it week in, week out on this podcast, is Jamal Lascelles. He was man of the match, and you could have picked 6, 7, 8 players, just like you could have done against Manchester United for man of the match. But yet again, no one stood out more than Jamal Lascelles for me, because he's when Newcastle have needed him, he's risen to the challenge, and a 10 out of 10 performance for me against Arsenal. And I fully expect to see him again on Tuesday against Dortmund.
Hope we haven't just jinxed that, but I mean, you're right, and I would actually love to go back to just a few weeks ago and scroll through social media and just see what some of the reaction was like when Botman got injured. I bet there was a lot of doom and gloom. I bet there was a lot of people, hiding behind their sofas when they saw Dummett and Lascelles starting against Manchester City. And now, actually, as you say, every week we're coming out and saying, do you know what? Who was the best player on the pitch? Jamal Lascelles. And I didn't think it was possible after the game he put in against, who was it when they won really narrowly? Yeah, actually, I tell you what, I couldn't believe he could get better than PSG. Then he topped that performance, and then he's topped it again Saturday. I agree with you. Man of the match for me. I think we should also give a little shout out to his defensive partner, Fabian Schär, who, by the way, again, just is improving every week, which is ridiculous when you think of his age. And then look, it goes back to what we were saying a couple of weeks ago. And I know that the consensus is probably Botman comes straight back in, but I'm really not sure he does,
But I don't think it would be a straight swap. And I think maybe the international break comes at the right time for Sven Botman because it gives him more time to work back to it. And then maybe people's memories forget about how good Jamal Lascelles been, but he's been the perfect captain, hasn't it? Like, and he's playing the best football of his career. And what I loved on Saturday was the absolute needle that was in that game. And Newcastle United are not pushovers anymore. Visiting teams came to St James's Park expecting Newcastle United at best to roll over. The top teams came knowing it was pretty much going to be a training session for them. The Cities, the Chelseas, the Arsenals, they'd come, they'd pass the ball around. Newcastle United might put a bit of a fight, but in the end, they would crumble because they didn't have the self-belief, they didn't have the work rate, they didn't have the fitness, the stamina. This Newcastle United will have all of that and in abundance. The crowd are behind them. The owners are with them. The manager is, supported on all levels. And he's putting such a work ethic that these teams come to Newcastle United. They can't handle all those elements rolled into one. And again, it was just another fantastic showing on Saturday with all that coming, to the front.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've actually hit on a very good point there, because if you look at the statistics, and again, if you hadn't watched the match, you would think, okay, this is probably quite a boring match. Arsenal with one shot on target, Newcastle with one shot on target. But even when Newcastle United aren't, doing well going forward, which admittedly they weren't on Saturday, it didn't really matter. There was that needle in the midfield with Joe and with Bruno pretty much committing assault on about three of the players and somehow managing not to get sent off. You also had the defensive solidity. You had Lascelles, as you say. I mean, there was a great moment in about the 96th minute, and Arsenal have got another corner. They had about 4 in added time alone, and you just see Lascelles in that tiny moment of quiet when the corner's about to be taken, and he's barking those instructions. And you just think this is a backline that, whoever plays, whether it's Kraft and Dummett, whether it's Botman and Schär, they look like they know exactly what they're doing. And also, by the way, we've now got fullbacks, one of who will probably play tomorrow, and Tino Livramento, given Dan Burns' knock on Saturday, who can come into this team and don't look out of place. I mean, Livramento, those two starts we've spoke about, the Manchester United, Manchester City, but actually, in the 45 minutes he was on Saturday, he was equally as good. I mean, he kept Martinelli quiet throughout. So as I say, even when they're not at their best going forward, it doesn't matter. They're still getting big wins.
100%. I'll just remind everybody of my prediction earlier in the season where I did predict Tino Livramento to start for Newcastle United permanently at right back at the start of next season. And no one quite believed that I was being serious, but I stand by it. And I think if anyone has watched the last few games, you'll see exactly why. But yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the fullbacks. There was an interesting switch. Well, first of all, what I should say, actually, Aaron mentioned an assault there. I'll say alleged. Okay, alleged. And we'll get on to Bruno's escape with the red card in a moment. But the fullbacks, there was an interesting little switch where he anyhow moved Joe Linton over to help Livramento out. And that's a nod to Eddie Howe seeing it, because again, we've had managers who just wouldn't think of doing that. And he's come and he's just offered a little extra protection for Livramento, because obviously Arsenal were targeting that flank, and it worked out. And you just got to. I mean, it sounds daft saying it, praising a manager for doing his job, but let's do it, because it made the difference.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't think many people would have actually noticed that switch either. Even Arsenal might not have noticed that switch, apart from you, obviously. You're eagle-eyed up there. You wouldn't have been there Saturday, would you?
No.
See, watching and telling, and you're still picking up those little bits of analysis. That's why you get paid the big bucks. No, but you're absolutely right. And I think, it's very, very good to see Livramento hitting the ground running. Joe Linton, I mean, somebody's already said in the comments, I can't remember who it was, saying that he was actually their man of the match in Joe Linton. And I think he'd probably be a very, very close second, given his, typical bulldozer type performance. It just makes you excited for tomorrow night and what's going to come potentially.
100%. And on Joe Linton, I think everyone knows he was my player of the year last season. Interesting anyhow, directly referenced him. He doesn't often do that. I know then he followed it up by saying, I thought all three were brilliant, but he did name Joe Linton as the one who made the difference. And he did. Like, he's just a tank. He's an absolute beast. And you question, where was that belief and self-confidence initially? Like, he's now using the strength. He's not afraid of a fight. He looked like he would have been afraid of his own shadow under Steve Bruce. But here he is, kind of Patrick Vieira-esque, just running the midfield. He's got so much energy. And I always say, without him in the side, Newcastle United do look a lesser side. It was another fantastic performance from Joe Linton.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's funny actually. The day before the Arsenal game, I was speaking to someone who works in German television, and he's a Stuttgart fan. And he was asking, "Oh, so how's Joe Linton doing?" Obviously, he knows him from his time at Hoffenheim, and knows him as what he described as a left winger back when he was in the Bundesliga. And having not watched much of Newcastle, he couldn't get over the fact that Joe Linton was now arguably Newcastle's best midfielder in the middle of the park. He couldn't get over the fact that he was now a bulldozing, marauding midfielder rather than a pretty limp and weak winger that was scoring maybe 5 or 6 goals a season in the Bundesliga. So it's just credit to him, and hopefully we've got him for many more years to come.
Fingers crossed. We have spoken in previous episodes about his contract, so one to watch there. A lot of people talking about the impact of Joe Willock. Look, my belief is that he's probably come back a little sooner than anticipated, but it looks like the right decision. Again, he was excellent on Saturday, and as we've mentioned earlier in the show, he was switched on. He played to the whistle. He got the ball back in the box, but full of energy, and it's a big boost to have him back, given all the injuries Newcastle are currently suffering, plus the ban of Sandro Tonali.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm going to say the Chronicle got pelters, but I think it should really, the criticism be aimed at me, because the predicted 11 we do before every game, it's usually done by myself. And I just had a sneaky feeling that he was going to rest Anthony Gordon and play Joe Willock, purely because of the amount of games Gordon's had and purely because of Dortmund tomorrow and the amount of people saying you can't drop Gordon, even though Willock is in fantastic form. So, I just want to apologise if anybody saw that on Friday or Saturday. But just on Willock, I think you make a good point. Jacob Murphy's shot, if we can call it that, which was heading to the East Stand, not the Gallagher. A lot of people would have given that up. A lot of people wouldn't have been able to get to it in time. And look, there's an argument that he didn't get to it in time. The referee clearly thought he did. And I don't know. I thought he came back too soon when he was forced into action when the injuries got hit against Dortmund at home. But actually watching him at Manchester United, I thought, what? He doesn't actually look like he's in need of any more, game time. And that was why I thought, what? Maybe he needs to start. Maybe he will start on Saturday. But maybe Howe's just saying it as, okay, we've got this settled side at the minute. Gordon's still playing well. Doesn't really look like he needs a rest. We'll keep Willock on the bench. But he's a fantastic option. And I wrote about this last week, but everybody was saying, how bad they felt from so close to an England call-up last year, injured at the wrong time, missing the Champions League games. Tonali comes in, but actually he strolled back into that team, and he now looks like, he shouldn't really lose his place once he's back in. That's how good he's been.
That is a big claim, but I guess with the ban of Sandro Tonali, there's obviously more of a chance, and obviously an Anderson impact as well from the injury. But yeah, great to see Joe Willock back. A word on Bruno then. Jamal Lascelles described him as a madman after the match. And I have to say, I think he should have been sent off. He was very fortunate that he did not see red. And I do question what VAR we're looking at, because it was a needless, it was arm to the head of Jorginho. It was dangerous. I just don't understand why he had to do it. And the half-time whistle came at the right time for him, because he was running around like, as Jamal Lascelles said in the after-match quotes, a madman. In 10 more minutes, I think he probably would have seen red. And Eddie Howe was asked about having to calm players down and at half-time, and he said, without naming anybody, it was important to put the message home that we needed to stay with 11 men on the pitch. Bruno, had his moments in the second half again where I thought he was I think I texted you, didn't I? I texted you just saying, stop it. And I have to also say, please, Bruno, please stop trying to win fouls on the edge of your box. You're going to give us a heart attack, man. But yes, he should have seen red. And I know everyone's going to be screaming, what about Kai Havertz? We'll get onto that in a moment. But, if you think Kai Havertz is a red card, then you have to also, I think, say that Bruno definitely should have seen red as well.
I mean, let's be honest, Bruno could have had about 3 separate red cards in that game. I know we're a Newcastle United podcast, and I know everything's positive after a great win, but in the the search of fairness, we need to say Bruno should have been sent off. He could have been sent off for that elbow on Jorginho in the first half. He then shoves Jorginho in the back unprovoked, doesn't get a booking for it. He raises his hands to Rice after the free kick doesn't get taken, and then obviously he does get booked for the foul on Vieira. I mean, ridiculously lucky not to get sent off. And yes, people will say, well, what about Havertz? But he just looked like a man possessed. He looked like a man not actually trying to play football. He just wanted to go out and pretty much, take chunks out of Arsenal. And don't get us wrong, it worked. I'm actually surprised Jorginho didn't bite to it. I know obviously there was a few scuffles with Jorginho, or some disagreements at full time with him and Lascelles and not shaking the hand. But I actually can't believe that he just sort of took those blatant Bruno fouls and didn't rise to it, because I think he's a better man than me for now.
Well, I mean, people will say, well, that's the passion you love from Bruno, but it's going to cost Newcastle United eventually. We don't want to rest on it too much because Newcastle United won, they go to Dortmund in high spirits, but it is going to cost Newcastle eventually because he does have the tendency to lose his head. Someone makes an excellent point about the referee losing the game. Now, Kai Havertz's challenge came before the Bruno whack to the face. Now, I'm going to get pelters for this, but my initial thought was that it was just a yellow card for Havertz. I thought it was leading towards reckless, but because he doesn't make actual proper contact from the angle, so I thought a yellow card was the right decision. I know people won't agree with this. What's your thoughts? I mean, are you saying it should have been a red?
I don't want to sit in the fence, but I think I might.
Aaron Stokes, ding ding ding, sitting on the fence.
Hang on, I'm just gonna get my neutral, balanced head on. I can see the clamour for a red card. He was wild. He was out of control. He was off the ground at some point, but he gets very lucky in the sense that he doesn't really catch him. He catches him with his trailing leg, and yes, it looks bad, but I think Havertz is really lucky that Longstaff just gets out the way of it. So I think it's a strong orange card, not a red. Sorry, someone's just writing in the comments here. I'm on the fence, never. I am though. I think on another day, just like the Joe Linton push, I think it could have been given, but I think a yellow is the right call.
I do think he should have seen a second yellow though, not too early in the second half, where he lunged in on, I want to say it was Callum Wilson, but the play continued. The referee didn't go back to him. I thought the referee was going to go back and actually show him a second yellow. He didn't. The referee totally lost control of that game though. In the moments after that challenge from Havertz, totally lost control. I mean, in a way, Havertz would have been over the moon. He gets booked, and he gets 4 Newcastle United players booked. It was ridiculous. The referee looked like he was losing utter control of the game. And actually, we see the half-time break came at the right time for the referee. For Bruno. But it came also probably for the referee just to have a cool head and regain his composure.
Well, before that Havertz tackle, there was a couple of decisions that weren't going Newcastle's way, and you could just feel the crowd maybe starting to get on the ref's back. And the referee actually had quite a good chance to maybe turn the tide a little bit. And I'm not saying he should have sent Havertz off to do that, but if he just sent Havertz off and then not booked 3 Newcastle United players after, I mean, that was the moment for me. He lost the game. I mean, you can't book Longstaff for that. Cher gets one as well. I can't remember who the other player was. Absolutely just ludicrous from the referee. I thought it was a terrible game for him personally. It was a Stuart Atwell, really bad game. Graham Paul lost it a couple of times on the touchline, the 4th official. He actually turned round at one point. And sorry, not Graham Paul. Sorry, not Graham. It's because of that Bobby Robson quote you were talking about before, Graham Paul. I can't remember the name of the 4th official, but he actually turned around to the crowd at one point because he was getting so much abuse from Newcastle supporters that he turned around and sort of like sarcastically told them to be quiet. And I thought, that's the 4th official losing it, not just the referee. So on another day, I think we could have seen red cards galore. I think we could have seen that Newcastle goal ruled out, but we're sat here. And who really cares now?
That's it. And actually, the injustice many people felt with Havertz just kind of spiced things up, and it got the crowd up to another level. Jason Tyndall going viral for shushing Havertz, and Havertz shushed them back, and it worked out all right this time around. Newcastle United, though, did not come out unscathed. Obviously, Bruno will miss the next game because of suspension. Dan Burn, injury as well. He fell from quite a height. It was Joe Linton, the tank, taking out his own man. But I guess, sorry, Dan, to say this, it's probably not that much of a loss, given you could do what I said would never happen and play Kieran Trippier at left back. John Gibson will be happy. Or Lewis Hall.
Yeah, I was actually sat just away from Gibbo in the press box on Saturday, so I couldn't see his reaction when Trippier came out and scooted over to the left flank, but I bet he was a happy man when it happened. I think if there's been a couple of weeks ago and we'd seen, Dan Burn potentially facing an injury like this, I think you'd be thinking, okay, well, is Lewis Hall ready? But now that we've seen Livramento and how good he's playing, it's actually the perfect opportunity for him to come into the team and, perform from the start. Now, what I will say is, until we see Dan Burn on the sidelines, please don't expect him to be injured, because we all thought Jacob Murphy was going to be injured, and then he rocks up at St James's Park on Saturday, despite dislocating his shoulder just a couple of weeks ago. So until Dan Burn, people say they won't believe a transfer until we've seen it with a scarf on the pitch. Until Dan Burn is spotted in the Nuffield Hospital, I will not believe that he's not playing tomorrow night.
Very true. Although the Jacob Murphy return did backfire somewhat, and we wait to see the impact of that. But yeah, and I think the form of Livramento and Lewis Hall looked really good against Manchester United, which was great to see, because I was a little bit worried if he could bounce back, but he did do brilliant going forward, and he could easily come in and replace Dan Burn if it is a long-term injury. I guess the only thing kind of we have to look at is whether Callum Wilson has enough in his legs to carry him through, not just Tuesday, but then into Bournemouth as well on Saturday.
Yeah, I hate to say it because of how much I just can't stand the international breaks, but it is that cliche that it's coming at a good time with a lot of injuries probably piling up. And I think one thing that's taken us a little bit by surprise is that Alexander Isak was actually spotted back in training this morning. Eddie Howe told us that he doesn't expect him to be back for the international break. But the fact that he's back in training is a very, very good sign. We obviously saw the Anthony Gordon experiment. We haven't spoken about it since. We saw it on Wednesday night, him through the middle. I will hold my hands up and say, even though I've been banging that drum, I didn't think it was his finest hour on Wednesday. So yeah, look, there's a question to say, does Wilson have enough? You need to hope that he just gets through these two games. Isak hopefully back for one of them, maybe. If not, then both of them fighting fit after the international break.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I didn't want to remind you about Anthony Gordon on Wednesday because Newcastle United was so brilliant. So we didn't really need to mention that. Maybe I was right about a third striking option. But anyway, Dortmund it is then. You're off to the press conference later this evening. Just let our listeners and viewers know what the rest of the day entails for you in terms of covering Newcastle here in Dortmund.
Yeah, well, if we look out that window just behind the camera, we'll probably be able to see Signal Iduna Park, where Eddie Howe is going to hold his press conference. Myself and Lee Ryder will be there. We'll be live blogging it. We'll have all the reaction. We'll also be hearing from one Newcastle United player. We're not sure who that is at the moment. But one thing that I was speaking to some of the lads from Newcastle Fans TV this morning at Stansted about this, and they were asking about Newcastle's preparation. Eddie Howe again choosing to train at Benton this morning, after what happened in Milan, after keeping us journalists waiting for 2.5 hours at the San Siro. Eddie Howe thinks that it's the right thing to do. Now, given the amount of Newcastle fans we've seen delayed and cancelled so far today, I don't know. If you ask me, they should be training at Signal Iduna Park. Eddie Howe should just do away with the tradition that he likes sticking to, but for whatever reason doesn't say it. So hopefully the Newcastle flight lands. Safe little journey over at the stadium, and we'll hear from the boss about 5 p.m. UK time.
We'll have a live blog running for that game. For that press conference. Newcastle United then versus Borussia Dortmund. We have to say it is a must-win for Newcastle United, isn't it? If they've got real aspirations of getting to the next stage, they need to beat Dortmund simply because Dortmund are ahead based on the head-to-head rules. Newcastle United cannot afford to lose this game, can they?
Yeah, look, it is. I think such fine margins, because if Newcastle got the win against Dortmund, that was them pretty much, sailing away with the group with PSG. Now it's completely flipped Group F on its head. It's going to be tough tomorrow. Now, again, that German colleague that I was speaking to the other week said Dortmund, they're nothing really special to write home about, but I actually thought they were very, very solid at St James's Park. And you'd imagine with the yellow wall behind them tomorrow night, they'll be even stronger. But Newcastle have proven already that they can take points from the biggest, and I think a lot of fans and the backing that they've got tomorrow will hopefully see them through. But it's a crucial game. The only thing I will say away from Newcastle United is that we really need to hope that PSG do us a favour and beat Milan. Just keep Milan at the bottom of the group away from us, and then at least, this isn't something that I want to happen, but at least you've got the Europa League to potentially fall back on.
Yeah, but I saw enough from Newcastle United in that second half against Dortmund where I thought they should have won the game. So I'm confident they can do it here. Dortmund lost 4-0 to Bayern Munich, embarrassed. So they're not going to be in the best of headspace. Newcastle are in a great run of form as well. As I mentioned at the start, that mentality, the world is against us, will help Newcastle in this situation. I'm backing them 100% to get the victory tomorrow. The atmosphere on the ground will be brilliant, and I think they'll just embrace the opportunity. I think they'll win it. I think they will win it, and I think that's set them nicely for the next stage. You're not too confident by the sounds of it?
It's not that I'm not confident. I'm just very surprised by your, the severity of your confidence. I think you're a lot more confident than I thought you would be. One thing I will say is that seeing the amount of fans that have travelled over, it's certainly going to be a very, very good couple of days. I think it's going to be some special scenes inside the stadium for that away end, and obviously the yellow wall, which is obviously so synonymous with big nights in the Champions League. For me, look, I think Newcastle United could win. I think we saw enough against them in the first leg to know that they could have probably got something from that game in the second half. Obviously, we know what happened against PSG, and I think they'll have learned so much from their last away game in Europe against Milan, where they looked a little bit shell-shocked, didn't they? If it wasn't for Milan's poor finish, and I think they would have been beaten that day. So they'll know a lot more. I don't think I'm going to go as confident as you, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Newcastle come away with 3 points.
Well, there we go. That wasn't quite you sitting on the fence, which is... let's just briefly run through the team then. Nick Pope, Tino Livramento, Lascelles, Cher. I can't believe I'm about to say this after all my kicking up a fuss. Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier actually liked the video that I put out, which I said Kieran Trippier will never ever play left back in Newcastle. I did caveat that by saying unless Eddie Howe was forced to. This, you could argue, is him being forced to. In the middle then, Bruno, Joelinton, Longstaff, Gordon on the left, Miggy on the right, Wilson up front. I don't know how these players are still going. It must just be the adrenaline, just getting them over the line. The likes of Gordon and Joelinton, just running through brick walls. The distance they cover against Arsenal, the distance they cover, match by match is unbelievable. Manchester United as well, and yet they'll do exactly the same shift against Dortmund on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've just named a couple there. I would even go further and say, Longstaff and Cher both struggling with, a little bit of an illness in the last couple of weeks, and they're still managing to come through. Especially Longstaff, who's just seems to be, as you say, running on adrenaline. I think that is probably going to be the team. But as I say though, don't count against Eddie Howe bringing a total surprise on us all, and starting Jacob Murphy.
Even despite his injury, I'm not quite sure Jacob Murphy will be, unfortunately, in the squad and available to be picked. We wish him well. We wait for an update on the injury to Jacob Murphy, and as we said, Eddie Howe will be speaking to the press later today. Aaron will be there alongside Lee Ryder. Now, you guys, if you're watching in Dortmund or in Dusseldorf and you're going to come to Dortmund, Aaron will be knocking about the square over the next couple of days. So come and say hello, come get involved. If you want to be involved in a couple of videos, we all always like to hear the view of the fans. We're going to finish then, Aaron, on some trivia. Are you ready for this? We couldn't come to Dortmund without doing a bit of trivia. So, very simply, I would like you to name the starting 11 plus the 2 subs that faced Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League here in Germany back in the 2002-2003 season. Newcastle United won 3-1. Can you name not only the starting 11 but the 2 players who also came off the bench?
You give me a tough one. I meant to be on my holidays,
Sorry, if the boss is watching, this is not a holiday. This is
definitely isn't a holiday. So sorry, give me the season again.
2002-2003.
Okay, we're gonna go Shea Given and Net. We're gonna go Aaron Hughes. We're gonna go with Olivier Bernard. We are gonna go with, who would have been at centre back? Johnny Woodgate there that season, or you already got Madrid?
No Woodgate.
We'll go O'Brien.
Yep.
Bramble.
Yes.
Solano.
No.
Wow, okay. That would have been an absolute knock-on bet for me. Laurent Robert.
Yes.
Diogenes in the middle.
Yes.
Both.
Kieran Courtney Dyer. You know that.
Okay. So that's Diogenes in the middle, Robert on the left. No one on the right. Well, that I haven't got someone on the right yet. Hugo Viana.
No.
Craig Bellamy.
No.
Is it an obvious one?
Yeah. So what you've got 3 left.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We'll go up front. Shearer.
This is where you get caught out.
No.
Shearer was not available because, if I'm not mistaken, he did get suspended in the game before. Did he not elbow somebody?
We'll go Shola.
Shola Amiobi up top scored 2 goals.
And we'll go Luar.
Yes, he scored 1. Now, can you name the 2 players? I'm just going to twist this around. Can you name the 2 players who came off the bench to replace them 2? And you still need 1 man in the middle.
In the middle or on the right?
Well, he's known as a central midfielder, so he would have been in the man in the middle.
Gary Speed.
Gary Speed it is. Now, can you name the 2 subs? Can you name the 2 subs that came on to replace Luar and Amiobi?
They came on up top. Carl Court.
Carl Court, ding ding.
And you said no to Bellamy. Who on earth could they else have had up front? No, you're gonna have to put me out of misery on that one.
I'm just going to check this before I shout it out to the world, but it is Michael Chopra.
Wow, okay.
There we go. Michael Chopra, ladies and gents. Well, this has been the Everything is Black and White podcast live from Dortmund. It's been a pleasure to bring the build up to the massive Champions League clash to you guys, and also to look back on a fantastic win over Arsenal on Saturday. Me now, and as I said, we'll be knocking about Dortmund, so we do see us come over and say hello. If you are unfortunately just back on Tyneside, enjoy it, but please remember to like, subscribe to the podcast, share it amongst your Newcastle United supporting friends and family, and head over to chroniclelive.co.uk to just enjoy all the build up, and hit subscribe on YouTube as well. We'll be bringing you plenty of video content over the next couple of days here in Dortmund. Thank you very much for tuning in.